I was 33 years old at the time of my surgery. I was also 33 years old at the time of my endometriosis diagnosis. I had really irregular, heavy cycles since puberty. It's always just sort of been random, when they would come on, whether I had severe pain or not. But I noticed in my late 20s, I started having heavier bleeding, worsening pain in different areas that I didn't really understand. And I am a nurse. I've been a nurse for 10 years. So, as you may know, we are some of the last people who will go to the doctor because we want to manage it at home. So, I got to the point where I was just getting some nervous about some of my symptoms. They weren't really making sense. So, I did have a pelvic ultrasound in 2018 because I had heavy bleeding and clotting that was kind of scaring me, and had never attempted to get pregnant, have never attempted to get pregnant. So I wasn't sure about a lot of my symptoms, I think because I never tried to conceive. That ultrasound was negative. The nurse practitioner solution at the time was to put an IUD in me. And the word endometriosis was never mentioned. My family history was never asked about, and the IUD did nothing for my pain or for my bleeding. And I'll never forget this. The last thing she said to me before I left was, "Come see us when you want to get pregnant." It was very, I think, clinically dismissive, maybe unintentionally, but the concern with her practice was to preserve the baby factory. And, at the time, I was probably okay with that, thinking maybe in the future I would want to conceive and should just, focus on these little changes for now. But the word endometriosis was never mentioned. I know it is difficult to diagnose on an ultrasound as well, so they truly probably did not suspect it at the time. And again, I'm a nurse. I wasn't going to go back in and keep complaining. I just sort of tolerated it. Then comes to this year, I was just tired of the worsening changes. And I researched the type of surgery center I wanted to be seen at. I knew that sterility was just going to be an added benefit to resolution of symptoms. I wasn't interested in trying hormones again. I was on oral contraceptives for a long time. They made me very depressed, very anxious. I was trying to avoid that at all costs. And I went in to see Dr. McCool because he functions in an ambulatory surgery center, which is what I wanted. I did not want to be hospitalized for this outpatient procedure. With my clinical background, understanding surgery services a bit better, I knew, the risks, the benefits. I went in to see him, told him what was happening, and told him what I felt that I wanted to do about it. And he um, was the first person to mention endometriosis and adenomyosis to me, which I had never heard of. I'm a pediatric nurse. So once he mentioned those things, I started to mention it to my family, and it turns out both of my grandmothers had hysterectomies very close to the age I am now for endometriosis, which was never mentioned before. It's not something we really talk about, in my family. And it was just funny that all of these things came to light very quickly because I decided to see Dr. McCool, decided I wanted surgery for these symptoms, regardless of what the diagnosis was. And come to find, when they took my uterus out, I had pretty advanced endometriosis, would likely have struggled with fertility even, and had a family history I never knew about because I never thought to ask. I was having not every single cycle, but I was having very heavy bleeding. And at work, I would bleed through my scrubs, in the operating room. And, as a nurse, you don't always have time to step away and take care of your, business. I also had an incident where I bled through my outfit on a flight, and it was a short flight. And I stood up and went, "Oh, something doesn't feel right." And I was starting to get dizzy. I never got to a point where I would have needed, I believe, a blood transfusion or a DNC or anything like that, because it was kind of irregular when it would hit me. But also, I was having deep, what I came to find out was adenomyosis, which I had never even heard of before. The endometrial tissue was growing into the muscle around a uterus, and the sort of blood clots and tissue were causing that pain. And I didn't really understand that. Had a very, I thought, more than basic understanding of my own, sort of reproductive health, but apparently I didn't. And that was the pain I was experiencing that I didn't really know how to describe. And Dr. McCool really helped me get to the bottom of it and explained what I was feeling, and that while I may have thought it was common, it was certainly not normal and something needed to be done about it. For the surgery itself, I think just preparation, even for the consultation, I was very nervous given my age that my firm stance on what I wanted done and that I wanted things to be treated in a final sort of way. I wanted to have complete resolution. I was worried I would be encouraged to wait because I might change my mind about the reproductive factor. But my husband and I do not want children. I had his full support the entire time. And Dr. McCool supported that, which I was actually very surprised, pleasantly surprised about, that I wasn't told, as a woman, I might change my mind, or that my, decision wasn't as valid because I am on the younger side. So going into that, I felt fully supported by Dr. McCool, all of the staff. The surgery itself, we did end up taking the transport bus up to New Jersey, which actually was great. We got to sleep in the bus on the way there. My husband got some rest. On the way back, I got to lie down. I was very, very comfortable, and had time to recover and eat and drink before we got home. And he wasn't trying to deal with me loopy in the car on anesthesia. We were just on the bus. The surgery itself, I had really no pain that first day. I had one spot of blood after surgery, and that's been it. Nothing else. It did get a little bit more sore in the coming days. Those first 2 weeks were pretty rough. Laughing, coughing were very, very painful, but I expected that. They are cutting through the abdominal muscle. So really, just while those internal sutures were in place, I could feel them. It definitely tickled a little bit, but I recovered, I think, on the timeline I expected to. In fact, when I decided to get up and way more active, I went on a hike on the third week post-op, and after that day, I felt so much better moving forward. Still with the occasional twinge of pain. There was also some post-op nausea, but I was able to take medication for that. I don't think I went through anything I didn't expect to. Other than that, I'd never had abdominal surgery before, and that feeling is not comfortable, but it was pretty short-lived, given the positive results that I had right away. And then the hormonal fluctuations were a little unexpected because they came on later. For me, they came on in October. I had my surgery in July. So I've had cystic acne, just some minor mood swings. And then I do still feel when I ovulate, because I did keep my ovaries. So some of those symptoms I'm still going to experience, I believe, through menopause, but they are more than manageable considering what I was going through before. And just a reminder that, everything's settling out. Those parts are still there. They're still working. My hormones will get into check, but it's going to take a little bit of time, I think, for that to settle out. Recovery process has been going very well. The pain was really just limited to those first few weeks. I haven't done like super aggressive exercise or lifting, anything super, super heavy, but I went back to nannying a very large baby a couple weeks out. He was over 20 pounds at the time, so I pushed it against my post-op orders a little bit. But apart from a little twinge here and there, it really wasn't bad. And I feel, other than the hormonal fluctuations, I do feel fully recovered now. The incision healed very well, had no issues with post-op infection or any complications like that. And I think I recovered very quickly. Felt that the Center for Innovative GYN Care actually took the reins advocating for me with my insurance company. I was very discouraged and frustrated at first when I got those few rejection letters that this surgery was not medically necessary. They also insisted I have a last-minute ultrasound the night before surgery, even though ultrasounds do not definitively show endometriosis in a lot of cases. I was not interested in taking what I thought were unnecessary, frustrating, and potentially detrimental steps to curtail the endometriosis, going back on hormones again, trying an IUD again. I had tried that before. I did not want to do it again. And ultimately, it was my body. if this was a more final procedure, women should feel that they can advocate for the finality of something that is going to sterilize them. I think maybe we're a little afraid to, especially in this day and age. And those first few letters from the insurance company were very dehumanizing. It seemed that they were not reviewing the facts, or if they didn't have all the paperwork, they could have just called me. I, being a nurse, the medical terminology, I don't trip over, and it would have
Yeah.
been a good conversation, but they never reached out to me. They just went round and round with Dr. McCool, but I did feel that Dr. McCool and the Center for Innovative GYN Care really took a lot of the work from me and advocated for me in a way that I didn't have to get riled up or write a nasty letter or fight with my insurance company on my own. I feel like the Center for Innovative GYN Care took that fight, they took it head on, and we got the result that we wanted. Quick decision I came to lightly either. It's something I'd been thinking about for, my entire adult life. And it is a woman's decision, just the way a vasectomy is a man's decision. If I don't want my
Absolutely.
uterus anymore and it's hurting me, and I know that it's hurting me, it should be my choice to have it out. And I should be afforded the same protection from my insurance company and the same consideration that I pay for without a fight. We are our best and last advocate. And I understand that geographically, a lot of women may have more barriers than I did to getting this done. I do feel grateful. I live in a more liberal area with more access to progressive surgeons and reviews to let me know which ones are going to be more amenable to what is right and what is clinically sound. I would recommend that every woman keep fighting. And if you are with a provider that is ignoring your pain or your symptoms, find another provider, even if you have to travel out of state. Luckily, I only had to take a shuttle to New Jersey. I was able to have my consultation very close to my home. But with insurance, I did have to leave the state to have the procedure done. It is worth it. Keep fighting. There are resources. I know that some people don't have the benefits that I do. And again, some of the disparities and the geographic barriers to care like this, I am aware of, and I definitely sympathize with those women, but keep fighting. Take a trip to another area if you can, if this is something you want done or you want more information about, if you just want to understand your own body more, if you want to preserve your uterus, if you still want to have children, please keep fighting for that, but talk to the right provider who is going to consider you as a whole and not just a baby factory, and your quality of life, a provider that's going to advocate for your quality of life and what you want. It is important what you want.